I speak inshallah.
Okay, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Welcome all, inshallah, to our another week of discussing more about the pearls of wisdom behind fasting and Ramadan. Inshallah, it's been a tradition to discuss this every year in the Ramadan. But new ideas, new openings, new reflections coming, alhamdulillah. And Hikmet Abi couldn't be with us this week to moderate, so I'll be a guest moderator, inshallah, for this week. So in the next slide, you will see a bit of a summary, I imagine, of the topic. As I just mentioned, it's the wisdoms, and Colin Hocam from UK and our beloved Imam from Bloomfield Muslim Community Center, like Arabi, will be joining us to share their opinions. And of course, as always, everyone from our audience are welcome to share their reflections and ideas and reflections on the passages that we will be reading. So, as you all know, we have been discussing the Risale 29th letter, second station from the letters of the Risale in reflection. And this ayah is definitely, especially as it relates to Quran and its revelation in the month of Ramadan, is a bit of like a tafsir of this ayah. But inshallah, there were discussions, I believe, about the nafs, tazkiyah nafs, and all the ideas about that. So inshallah, I know last week, towards the end of it, Hikmet Abi was able to share the starting of the fifth point in the last 10 minutes or so of the discussion. So he promised, I believe, to continue on that. So I will try to, inshallah, keep his promise and start from the fifth point. And as always, we'll turn to our speakers to share their reflections. So inshallah, I will start reading. And but before you do that, since I wasn't able to join last week, if anyone wants to summarize maybe just a little bit of what has happened last week, because I know there were some discussions towards the end which we may want to touch upon again. But before we start, any reflections to help us prepare for this week's discussion? I don't know, maybe Colin Hocam from your end.
Sorry, I can't remember what we were discussing in the last session. But overall, we've discussed the first 4 points.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to scroll through them very quickly.
I think this specific document starts from the fifth, which is fine.
Oh, okay, right, okay. I think we only started to talk about this last week. Yes. I don't remember how far we got, but it's basically a kind of it's a variation on the same theme. Yeah. Which obviously is about the maqasid, about the objectives and aims of the Ramadan fast. Yes. Which we think it's primarily about eating and drinking, or not eating and drinking. But that is only a symbolic kind of representation of what we're doing during the month of Ramadan. We're connecting not only with Quran, which came down in the month of Ramadan, but we're also connecting with our metaphysical and spiritual reality, which is, as it says here, the human soul often forgets itself through neglect. It is unable to see its own absolute powerlessness, need, and deficiency. Ajz and faqr are themes which recur in the Risaleh a lot. There are numerous references to ajz and faqr. And this is actually a pattern of creation. Ajz and faqr is something which is specific to created beings. We are ajiz and faqir. Everything is ajiz and faqir. If there is power, then it is reflected on the creation. So powerless, need, and deficiency, and we see it not just in the creation as a whole. We see it in the stories in Quran of the prophets, because the prophets, the stories of the prophets in the Quran are very concise, they're very condensed, which shows us they're about meaning. And these three things here, absolute powerlessness, need, and deficiency, can be seen in all of the prophetic stories, can be seen in most of the verses in the Quran. They're referenced. So we're being asked to connect, we're being asked to not just, in a sense, sacrifice what Allah has given us, and give of ourselves, giving it back by not doing it. The sacrifice actually is something else which exists, or all through creation, and even today, sacrifice is a very, very big issue. But this sacrifice is, a giving of the self in order to understand the self. So it's giving up something, it's sacrificing food and drink in order that we can understand our wholeness as human beings. And we can only understand that if we understand that we are absolutely powerless, needy, and deficient. Sorry.
Yeah.
So that basically, I think, ties up the first few slides, the first 4 points,
Yes.
very, very briefly. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. It was very, very helpful. Because as you said, there's the understanding of our place in the universe, right, where we are, our nafs, our lower self, where it should be, and putting it where it belongs, I think is definitely a major hikmah and wisdom behind Ramadan and fasting. And I believe, the fourth point kind of started with some relationship to nafs, right? Tazkiyah, I think, I opened the document from from another screen on my end, but tazkiyah is was the topic of the fourth point, and I think inshallah we will switch to more of like giving up of the rebellious habits, and inshallah we will discuss, and I will read through this inshallah, and then I will also ask, so that audience is aware, that I will also ask like the nuances between the fourth point and the fifth point again, which is both related to nafs, but probably different habits or different aspects of nafs. But inshallah, I'll start with reading this and we can continue after that. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The fifth point. Another of the wise purposes of the Ramadan fast concerns the conduct of the lower self and the abandonment of rebellious habits, and it is as follows. The human soul often forgets itself through neglect. It is unable to see its own absolute powerlessness, need, and deficiency. In fact, it cannot bear to see them. It does not consider itself weak, and it refuses to admit that it is subject to transience or prone to disasters. It refuses to see that it is housed in a body that is nothing but flesh and bone, with death and decay its ultimate fate. Instead, it acts as though it possessed a body of steel, immune from death and decay. It attacks the world with voracious greed and with violent passion and endless desire. It is entranced by anything that gives it pleasure or offers it benefit. More importantly, it forgets the one who creates and sustains it with perfect compassion, and it pays no attention whatsoever to the outcomes of its life and its fate in the hereafter. It wallows in vice and it thrives on misconduct. Fasting in the month of Ramadan goes some way to awakening even the most neglectful and obstinate of souls, alerting them to their weakness, their impotence, and their need. When they are hungry, they think of their stomachs, and they are thus able to understand their neediness. They realize how frail their bodies really are, and they come to perceive how much they need kindness and compassion. The Ramadan fast gives the lower self an opportunity to abandon its pharaonic tyranny. Through recognizing its utter impotence and want, the lower soul nurtures a desire to take refuge at God's court. If negligence has not already destroyed its heart, the lower self prepared in Ramadan to knock at the door of divine mercy with the hand of gratitude. Okay, inshallah. So this is the fifth point, and I think this is very relevant to our habits, to what we think as our of ourselves, and our nafs, right? Nafs, I think one way to also describe nafs is ourself, but it's of course our lower self. But it is very true, I suppose, right, in this age, to see ourselves as invincible, um, right, or looking up to all these figures of invincibility and getting that as the ultimate goal. But it's not the truth, and I think this is the great point to reflect on this. So I'll turn to Baykar Abi first, because I wanted to hear from him as well, his reflections on fifth point. Again, if you can connect it back to also to fourth point, which was more about the tazkiyah and the nafs considering itself being independent, and now going more to its true nature. Would you like to share your reflections, Baykar Abi, with us on this point? If you are muted, you might be muted.
Okay. Are you here right now?
Yes, yes.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, Ramadan is going great. Nice to be back again. So I'm trying to make a distinction between fourth and fifth, but really I couldn't. But I just want to mention that Colin Abi just made a very accurate description of Ramadan Risale. Again, it is talking about our fitra, who we are, who the human being is. Most of the time, we just give an artificial role to ourselves, and then we try to fit in, and we don't know, even we are harming ourselves as we abuse ourselves physically many times, and use our organs, body in harmful way. There's also a lot of spiritual and existential even mistakes that we try to fit in, unless we know what is the human being is. So with an outsider view, fasting could look like, oh, I'm kind of torturing myself, I'm giving difficult time to myself. But on the contrary, not fasting in a way could be the same, that I'm not feeling who the human being is, and what is my real nature, my real fitra, and how I can really comfort myself, or how I can really be in peace and tranquility and harmony with the universe. This is what and myself fasting is. That's why I start at the end of many points asking, if you do not appreciate this, you cannot understand this, what kind of humanity is this? What kind of human are you? Because again, I'm realizing my own reality, how weak I am, how needy I am, and I'm trying to find a cure, find a support, and without fasting, that's impossible. The nafs, the self, ana, ego, just gives himself a artificial ownership, and just loads a huge and unbearable burden on his shoulders and try to act like a real owner, which is not. And this really crushes, him in many ways. Puts the whole universe as a burden onto his back, and breaks his back, in a way. So that's the, in a way, what the fourth and fifth point to me tells again, without this practice of worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the nafs, the self ego, never gets this, Again, we can intellectually discuss it, we can bring evidences, we try to understand it, convince ourselves, but unless the nafs does practice, does worship, especially fasting, it's not possible to really acknowledge our reality. This is just what came to my mind from the initial reflections.
Thank you. Because indeed, right, like the acknowledging, as you said, our reality, right? It is just a matter of understanding who we are, right? It's not doing anything weird, right? It's not doing anything that is not in our nature. It's a discovery tool, almost sounds like, right? Which helps us really discover and understand who we really are. It's not really adding in necessarily new feelings. It just helps us discover the ones or the nature that is already in there. So, Jazakallah, thanks for those reflections. Kol Najam, would you like to share some of your thoughts about this fifth point, specifically about this invincibility illusion?
Invincibility. I'm thinking of all the Marvel films, of all the superheroes that come out from Hollywood.
There was even a Man of Steel thing here, so I'd like.
Yeah, of course. So these are all projections. These are excellent. They're all projections.
Yeah.
Going back to the connection of the fast with tazkiyah, with cleaning the nafs, tazkiyah, purifying the nafs. Allah says quite openly that you cannot yourself clean your nafs or purify your nafs. Even we can't do that because we are so powerless and we are so impotent and we are so needy. And this connection to Ramadan, because I've just been reading something else that on another group, not a Resada group, a different group, talking about the bare minimum that we do in Ramadan, and then the elite do this, and then the saints do this. Actually, we don't do anything in reality. We abstain, and abstention is a kind of negative action. You're not doing anything. One of the reasons Allah says fasting is for me alone, in other words, for Him, is that in a sense we resemble His indescribability, in a sense, because we cannot describe Allah as He really is in and of Himself. We have to use what He gives us to describe Him, His beautiful names. But He is completely unlike anything, any being. Any created being, clearly, because he's the creator. And the fast is absolutely unlike any other act of ritual worship because no one knows you're fasting. And also, it's you can't fake it. You can't pretend, because how could you pretend that you're fasting? Because fasting means not doing anything, it's not eating. So it can't be done in order to be seen. Whereas with the shahada, with the prayer, with the salat, with the zakat, and with hajj, these are all very social acts. You take your shahada, there are two witnesses, and you should be taking your shahada all the time. That's a different issue. Pay zakat, there is a zakat collector, or there is a charity, or however you pay your zakat, someone's going to know about it. Hajj, of course, you're in, with millions of other people. And with the salat, with the namaz, then you pray jamaat and you're seen. And there's a possibility in all of those that you can do it a little bit to be seen, right? There's a possibility of riyah, of showing off. So if I don't go to Friday prayer, my neighbor's going to think badly of me. So I go to Friday prayer to be seen by my neighbor, that kind of thing. But with fasting, we can't do this. This is why it is, Allah says, it is for Him alone. We're not doing it for ourselves. We're not doing it for ourselves. In other words, we're not doing it to be seen and to be applauded and to be celebrated. So that is factored in. And when that is done sincerely, if people fast sincerely, and there must be an amount of sincerity in fasting because you can't benefit from it socially, right? You can go to iftar and pretend you fasted, but that's not going to benefit you at all, right? It's going to make you worse. It's going to make you more mendacious. It's going to make you more of a cheat. So if the fast is done properly, it doesn't matter what level you're at. According to Imam Ghazali, lots of different levels of fasting. It doesn't really matter. You're doing it in a very sincere way because you can't fake it. You can't show off with it. You can't be ostentatious about it. So by default, it is for him. And he will, if we are fasting properly, inshallah, make us realize through our hunger, through our thirst, through our abstaining, our powerlessness, our need and deficiency. And that will have a very healthy effect on our lower self, on the nafs al-ammara. And this is how tazkiyah works. We can't make tazkiyah. We can't. How are you going to make tazkiyah? We make tazkiyah by not doing things. And then we make him the wakil. He is the one that we entrust our not doing things to, so that he can translate that into tazkiyah, into purification. So we shouldn't think that, we are not doing anything. We're not doing anything extra. We're not bringing anything, to the equation. We are actually not doing things. We're abstaining. So it's a kind of negative action. And that is the only way that tazkiyah can take place. You can't say, oh, I've decided to purify myself. Oh, that's a crazy thing to say. How are you going to do it? What are you going to create? What situations are you going to create? Are you going to go inside your nafs with a sponge and rub off all the black marks? How are you going to do it? There's only one way, and that is through submission, obedience, and by not performing, not eating, not drinking, not being intimate, not lying, not watching rubbish on TV. All of these things that are usually mentioned as the things, that we're doing, but actually it's just a case of lots of not doings rather than lots of doings.
Very good, thanks. Great. So there's somewhat of a connected thing about the nafs's nature, the question on the chat that I would like to share, because this whole deficiency thing, like that is kind of futra. So the question is the tendency for the human nafs not to want to see its own deficiency because of its love of immortality. If so, then is this not part of the human futra too? There is such a fine line between finding oneself's ajz and faqr in the face of desiring perfection and immortality versus clinging onto a false imagined immortality in one's own life or self. This is an interesting question I would like to ask our speakers, right? Like it is the reason that we would like to see ourselves as continuous or powerful is we would like immortality or we want eternal life. Is this the methods that we are failing? What do you all think? Maybe by Karabi, I'll turn to you since you haven't spoken. But the question is clear, right?
Well, it could be, yes, we can, mention it as an evidence. We have a lot of different reflections of the creator in different ways as a human being, as the, most comprehensive mirror in the universe. So it could be one way of reflection with our with the opposites, with the contrast in a way that is infinity reflects on us with ephemerality, but we still urge and seek that. That could be one way of understanding it. I don't know if the maybe you can open up a little bit your question.
I don't know, Colin Najam, do you have reflections on the?
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
question?
This is a great question, actually. If I can see it here, it's is the tendency with the human nafs not to want to see its own deficiency because of its love of immortality? If so, then is this not part of the human fitra too? Yes. It's a universal. Wanting immortality is universal for everyone, every human being, believers, unbelievers alike. Everyone wants to live forever. And if someone says, I don't want to live forever, they're lying, unless by living forever, they think living forever in this world, because that's not possible. The deal is that we believe in an akhirah, we believe in a hereafter, and we are created with desire for that. And everyone has that desire. And we see it in all aspects of human culture, this desire to be seen, to be noticed, to prolong one's life. And if we don't happen to believe in the real hereafter, we try to make ourselves enduring and important and lasting and, in a sense, kind of immortal in this world. Quran is full of the symbolic representation of our desires for the hereafter, such as amwal wa banun, possessions and children, and money, and fame, and all of these things, and kingship. These are all symbols and they're signs of this desire that we have to be important, to last, not to be forgotten, to matter. And we see it now in modern culture, with these efforts to prolong life, these efforts to stay younger, these efforts to really live for as long as is absolutely possible. These are all indicative of this very foundational human desire that we have to live forever, and this is fitri. Allah gives us an ability. We are jahul and zalum. This is why we accepted the amana, because we were jahul and zalum. But we shouldn't see those as negatives. It meant that we have infinite capacity. If you are jahul, it's not just jahil; it's compounded ignorance. It means you have absolute. If you can think of a bottomless pit, a bottomless well of ignorance, that well can be filled with infinite reflections of Allah's ilm and all of Allah's other names. And the same with our ajz as well. Ajz and fabr, they are absolute, which means, and you can tell because our imaginations expand to encompass the whole of the universe and the whole of history. Our desires are endless. Our wants are endless. Our needs are endless. And Allah shows us that our needs are endless. Why do you have to have food every day? There's this need, there's this ajz, and Allah gives us our senses to enjoy all of the things that He's giving to us. And we don't want them to stop. No one wants them to stop, because happiness always ends in, with sadness. All of the things end with their opposites, because this is how the world is. But we don't want that. When Ibrahim said, La uhibbul afilin, he said, I don't like the things that set. He watched the stars and the sun and the moon, and they all set. And he said, well, they cannot be deities. I can't worship them because they disappear. We don't like things that disappear. And when we see that we're weak, as we get older, we see ourselves start to weaken. You see wrinkles, you change, all of these things, you get weaker and weaker. We don't like it because it goes against this fitri desire we have not to be like this, because we have a memory of Jannah in us, where we knew that we were immortal until Iblis tricked us into thinking that we can only have immortality on his terms. So I'm sorry if it was a long answer, but
no, that's fine.
It was a really brilliant question, excellent question.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, right. Like it is like the case of the ego and I, right? Like it is a tool, right? Like our nafs is a tool which wants immortality. How we really reap that or make use of that is definitely up to us, and Ramadan definitely helps. There is I guess Jismabi has shared part from the Mesnevi and Nuriya, and inshallah on the chat, I think it is also related. I will also convey that, read this. Know, O beloved friends, the life of good deeds and charities is through intention. Their corruption, however, stems from vanity, ujub, hypocrisy, riya, and showing off. The essence of matters of the heart, those feelings felt naturally and directly in the conscience through innate awareness, is interrupted and cut off by a second conscious intention. Just as the life of ritual actions depends on intention, in another respect, intention is the death of natural states. For example, an intention to be humble corrupts humility, turning it into a form of pride. An intention to be proud dissolves that pride, making it feel forced, artificial. An intention to feel joy makes it fly away. An intention to feel grief and sorrow lightens it. You may compare other states accordingly. This is from Mesnevi Nuri Arabiya. Jazmawi, I guess you shared this. Was this in terms of how we need to make fasting, like related to Kulnajam's first point about how we need to make fasting a way to
this could be an artificial fake, negative representation of who we are, as we talked in the very beginning.
I see. Okay.
If you really try to be immortal, and we found such and such cure, the average age is now 120, and they are still working on this gene, and etc., etc. This has been there since very old, not Firaun, maybe older times, and this is not the who the human being is, or this is as Colin Abi explained, it's not the why this feeling is given to us. We are kind of abusing it, using it in a completely opposite way for what it was given to us. So that could be an example, I guess, explanation.
Yeah. Cool. This sounds great. Thank you for the explanation. All right, I guess Brother Said raised his hand. Okay, yeah, before we move on, maybe I'll give him the microphone.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu
I have a point to raise about the last page, the last statement about it's kind of actually scary. The statement is here about the negligence, which is highlighted at the entry of the fifth point. How serious point is the neglect and negligence is. The Ustad put the conditions here at the very end, the last page of the presentations. If the negligence has not already destroyed its heart. So is this conditions for covers even the people who has fasting, or just people who has not into fasting? First of all, let's assume, which I think is the correct, this is for the Muslim, who is the Muslim and knowing Allah and accepting the conditions of the Islam and having fasting. Those message points is addressing the Muslims, believers. this is actually kind of scary. So even though we believe we are believer, we are Muslim, we still, but this is the potentials actually we still encountering. Even if we are see ourselves as a believer Muslim, this is the actual challenge we are still facing. But my point or question is the last paragraph, the Ramadan fast gives the lower self an opportunity to abandon its pharaonic training through recognizing its utter impotence and want. Lower soul nurtures a desire to take refuge in Allah's court. But Ustad put the conditions if negligence has not already destroyed its heart. So is this situations for even the people who has fasting or the people Muslim, like in the Qafla, they are not practitioner. They call themselves as Muslims, but they are not practicing anything, just naming themselves as a Muslim, but not praying, no fasting, nothing. Just like regular secular, let's say, Muslims. Is this referring to them or referring to people like us practicing, doing praying and trying performing some fasting? How should we understand these conditions destroy its heart? Are we in that category also?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. Just to summarize a little bit, I guess you're asking, are we as practicing Muslims also the addressee of some of these relatively harsh remarks, right? Both about ourselves and as well as this negligence destroying the heart, right? In this last part of it.
Our heart is still can be destructible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great question. Konrajan, would you like to share your reflections on that?
Another great question from Brother Said. I'm only laughing because he always asks a question just before I'm going to speak, so I get put on the spot.
Sorry, I don't intend to do that.
No, it's fine. It's good. It's a good test. I think it's for all of us, actually. I mean, I think this is a general thing, because who's reading this, first of all? People reading Ramadan Risalesi will be either reading as interested outsiders or as unbelievers who've been given the Risala to read, or as believers. So it's addressing all of us. And I think that the destruction of the heart, obviously, if a heart is absolutely destroyed, then there's nothing you can do because, khatam Allah ala qulubihim, then, there's really nothing you can do. But I think that if you have to ask the question, does it mean me when I'm fasting, then I would say, just in my own opinion, no, that it doesn't mean you. It doesn't mean your heart is destroyed, because you wouldn't be asking the question. If you're fasting and you're sincerely asking the question, does it mean us? Well, yes, it does mean us. We're always in the danger of our hearts being damaged. But someone whose heart is completely destroyed would not be fasting and asking that question. But I think that's a slightly different question. I think Brother Said was saying, are we, as you said, Mustafa, are we the addressees of this?
Yes.
And yes, we are. And harsha that our heart should be destroyed. But obviously, Ustad has to, give us the terminus of that process. The very end result of that process of neglect will be a destroyed heart. So I think this is why he mentions it, as a warning to us.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's a great reflection. I guess it is, as you said, a process, right? Like we don't know where we may be in that process. May Allah protect us from being at the very end of it, where the heart is actually destroyed. So yeah.
So maybe does that force us to, like, we are still fasting, try preventing everything, like perfecting or fasting with every way or form, maybe reminds or warning us to perfect our fasting, because otherwise still like fasting, but still our heart is distractible. It's kind of scare warning.
It's we could say God's scare tactics, but they work. Divine scare tactics are there for a purpose. And if you're worried, if you think of your physical heart, your heart can be damaged in certain places, but still beat and still allow you to live. And you can go to the end of your life with a damaged heart, and it doesn't kill you. But when it's destroyed, that's it. So it's not either your heart is destroyed or it's completely clean. It's never like this. Obviously, you can have a heart that's damaged in parts, spiritually. There are certain areas of our how can we say, our deen, where we need to do better, or where nafs al-ammara is still very, very effective. Again, it's not a monolith. The heart is it's qalb. Allah is mughallib al-qulub. He turns the heart this way and that way, and it gets bumped and it gets banged, and because of us, because of our nafs. So you can live with a damaged heart, but you can't live with a destroyed heart. But we need to be warned of the dangers of it, definitely.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great answer.
Can I also thank Brother Jesmi? As always, he whenever anything is mentioned, he finds quotes which fit in, and he this intention to feel grief and intention to feel joy. It makes me think of all the self-help books which you find. How to be a better this, or how to do a better that, how to be happy. Teach yourself how to be happy. How are you going to do that exactly? How on earth are you going to make yourself happy? You see them all the time, these self-help books. And these self-help books, I think, are about 100 years old as a genre, as a category of book. And they're still writing them. So clearly they're not working. So, because continuously they're churning out these books, publishing houses all the time, and people are actually getting worse, not better. So there's something in that there.
The demand is still there and growing, I suppose. And
the demand is there, but the solution isn't.
Yes.
Quran gives us the solution by don't try to make yourself happy, because it's not going to happen. You can't make tazkiyah to your own nafs. You have to do it through a negative means, which is, in the sense of Ramadan, is not doing things. Not actively doing something, but passively doing something negative. But the materialists, they say we can make ourselves happy, we can do this, we can do that. It's nonsense, really.
It does sound counterintuitive, right? With all these things about empowerment and all that. It's almost like the opposite of empowerment.
I think we need to ban that term, from all social sciences. Empowerment. It was so empowering. No, it wasn't. It might have been insightful, but it wasn't empowering. It didn't give you power to do anything. I mean, we can use these words colloquially, but we have to be careful.
Yes. And Baikar, any reflections? Otherwise, I will go into the sixth.
Well, I wish we could do what Corin Abi mentioned, but that's the whole mystery, That's the whole. I don't want to even say the struggle we are putting on the table. That's the whole acknowledgement we should, internalize. But that's so difficult. I don't know. Child of this time and age. I don't think even we can recognize the distinction between our nerves, our ego, our heart. When I like something, when I, wish something to happen, I don't even know what, where I'm looking at, or for what after what I am really running. The question was also very interesting. Thank you for raising it, the brother Said. From the very first word, that just tries to open our eyes to this reality, but even, most of the time our readings of the Quran, our readings of Risala goes like that. We are at the safe side, we are at the being a student of Quran side, but it wasn't, it was very lately that I acknowledge for myself that I'm more of a student of philosophy, side. I'm not really still, being a student of Quran, and that being, the distinction also between the Ahl Ghafla and Ahl Dalala is very important. Ustad, mentions it again and again, because yes, inshallah, Allah, did not seal our hearts still, we have hope, la taqnatu min rahmatillah. But definitely, yes, we are in the definition of Ahl Ghafla, that heedlessness is always there, and we are, inshallah, constantly moving to the good side of the spectrum, but it's a very large spectrum, between a believer and unbeliever. So that's why also, I guess, there's a lot of definition in the hadith at the end of time. You wake up as a believer, you come back home as a disbeliever, and so we need to, جدد إيمانكم بالله إله إلا الله. We should always remind ourselves about this, reality, this fact of life, who we are, what's our condition, what's our situation in the universe, and that's who we are. Yeah, we are always, forgetful insan, and the ghafla is always there.
Yeah, and it definitely is a great point where you made. Like it's about awareness, I suppose, right? Like starting from the awareness of what is the source of this desire? Is it like my nafs or heart, right? And you're right. Like in the Western context, this is pretty much is lost. Like when you say follow your heart, does it mean follow your nafs or follow your real heart? Right? I mean, all those things are very, very intertwined, and alhamdulillah, the Islamic terminology and the terminology that Ustad provides here definitely gives us that awareness, that distinction clearly to help us through that, inshallah. I think there is a hand up. Let me go to Brother Razgar.
Assalamu alaikum. I had something in mind I wanted to share.
Great.
And I think it's we can say that in this time and age that we live in, there is something like a trap that Ustad in the first maktub, the first letter and the fourth question talks about it when he discusses the persons as being mirrors, reflecting the room that they are inside, and that we should focus our attention on the room, actual room, not the virtual room in the mirror.
Nasılsınız?
İyi hamdolsun, sen nasılsın?
Allah iyilik versin. Sağ olun.
Yenge
Buyurun.
herhalde şeyli kırıyor.
Şimdi aradı beni he.
Ben de-
Öyle mi? He tamam. Eyvallah. Eyvallah.
MashaAllah, brother can give our salam to everybody over there. I guess there's some distraction.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we do, brother.
Yes. I think Ustad there talks about a trap that sometimes Muslims or people think that they have changed their focus from the virtual world or the world in the mirror to the actual world or the room. But they actually didn't do that. They actually focused their attention from their selves, from their nafs, into the afaqi or horizon world, and they think that they are going to be as they live as long as mountains and the sky that is outside of them, and they think that they are the ajal of them, the death of them is they're going to live until the world ends, or the Qiyamah Kubra, or the death of the earth. So this trap is very important that we do not fall into. And I think in Ramadan here, fasting proves to us that we are actually not made in metal. We are flesh, and we are continuing. And I think that's a place that we can reflect on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, right. Indeed, that this, as mentioned here, right? Like we are not made of steel and iron, and we are definitely impotent and weak, flesh and bone, as you just mentioned. And Jazakallah, this was actually a great way to summarize this point as well. So inshallah, in our last 4 minutes or so, I will just read through the 6th point so that we kind of are prepared for next week. I know we won't have really time to talk about it, but inshallah, I will at least prepare us. And it's a bit of a new topic as well. That's why, I know we won't be able to talk through it, but it's about revelation of the Quran and how Ramadan is related to that, which also is directly connected to the ayah that we have spoken about in the beginning, and in the beginning of the Risala is quoted. So inshallah, I'll read through this so that we can gain our reflections through the week, and we can continue next week with this part, inshallah. The 6th point: the most important episodes of divine revelation took place during the month of Ramadan, and so one of the many wise purposes behind the Ramadan fast pertains to the revelation of the all-wise Quran. It is as follows. Since the all-wise Quran was revealed in the month of Ramadan, to ignore the demands of the lower soul, nafs, by abstaining from food and drink, means that we are able to respond to that heavenly address in the best possible way. Fasting, then, allows us to attain a state of holiness. It allows us to read and listen to the Quran as though it has just been revealed, or as though it is being revealed at this very moment as we read it. It allows us to listen to the Quran as though we are hearing it from the lips of God's noble Messenger والسلام, or from the angel Jibril, or indeed from the pre-eternal speaker himself. It allows us to act as the Quran's interpreter, to communicate it to the others, and to some extent to demonstrate through our actions the wisdom behind the Quran's revelation. Indeed, it is as though in Ramadan, the whole world of Islam is transformed into a mosque, a place of prostration. In every corner of that mosque, millions of those who have memorized the Quran cause the dwellers on earth to hear that heavenly message. Each Ramadan reflects in the most luminous way the verse, شَهْرُ رَمَضَانِ الَّذِي أُنزِلَ فِيهِ الْقُرْآنِ. It proves beyond all doubt that Ramadan is the month of the Quran. Some members of the vast congregation listen to the Quran reciters with respect, while others recite it for themselves. To pander to the base desires of the lower self while situated in a sacred mosque, and to abandon the state of holiness through eating and drinking is to invite the disgust of the rest of the congregation. Similarly, those who oppose this practice of fasting in the month of Ramadan call upon themselves the disgust of the whole world of Islam. So again, inshallah, we are also at time, almost at time. So as I just mentioned, I will leave all the comments about this for next week, but inshallah, it will prepare us for the discussion next week. So before we end, maybe I'll have some final thoughts, maybe first from you, by Karabi, and then from you, Najam.
Sorry, not enough time to reflect. As you said, I just wanna say Amin. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. The whole chapter also starts with this specific verse. May Allah help us to bring the Quran into our lives, inshallah.
Najam, any closing thoughts on your end? But this
Not
week in
really.
general.
Just say amen to what Baikal has just said. And next week we have something interesting, very interesting to look forward to with this next point, inshallah.
Inshallah, inshallah. Okay, Jazmavi, would you like to end this with a dua?
Inshallah. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم فهمنا أسرار القرآن ووفقنا لخدمته في كل آن وزمان آمين. Oh Allah, grant us understandings of the mysteries of the Quran and success in the service of it at every instant, at all times. Ameen. And may Allah make our Ramadan a means of gaining 1,000 month, so including the Laylatul Qadr. Inshallah, make our Ramadan, inshallah, better than 1,000 month. Give us strength to make it more, inshallah, flourishing, fruitful. Ameen.
Thank you very much, Abdullah, and inshallah.